Good morning and welcome to the Covered Cal High podcast. Oh my gosh, Friday night, busy night of high school football. And it was super hot.
Smoking.
90 degree weather, man.
Yeah, I hope that's the last heat wave, man, because I cannot wait for fall weather.
We're getting the good weather next week. I did see.
Oh, thank God.
show you.
Thank God. Welcome to the Covered Cal High podcast. I'm your host, Jake Vanderbrook, alongside Tyler Flips and Adrian Soriano, known as the Grin Master. But anyways, let's get to you some scores from the other night. And we start out in Concord, and De La Salle was able to roll past Sarah, winning 39-10. We all thought that this was going to be a close game, but De La Salle managed to just storm past those Padres, while St. Francis was able to take care of business on its home field, beating Mac 33-14.
And then on to the big game I was talking about last episode, Liberty and Los Gatos. Was not the same game that it was last year. Los Gatos best Liberty 38-21. Great stuff there. We'll cover that later into the show. And then we have Sobrato and Live Oak down the Morgan Hill area.
Ooh.
Sobrato takes the win over Live Oak 20-14. Live Oak beat them last year, and they come back and get one back this year. That's a high rivalry game between those two.
Yeah, and that was a shootout.
Yes, it
last
was.
year.
Yep.
Yes, it was.
Now we go down to Ventura College. Reardon lost to St. Bonaventure 42-34. They were down big, but they almost pulled off the comeback. Almost did. Then El Cerrito. This game could have been a statement game for them. They beat Monterey Trail 28-19. Monterey Trail, Sac Joaquin Section D1 playoff team last year. That's a statement win for those Gauchos.
Hey, I know they're moving up in your poll, and we'll talk a little more about that later on in the show. Other scores, Windsor. Windsor's a team to watch out for. A nice 42-0 win over Hayward, while Cal was able to take it against James Logan 38-6.
And then we had the Battle of the Hearts. Sacred Heart Cathedral and Sacred Heart Prep. Prep staying dominant. Sacred Heart Cathedral staying dominant, taking down Prep 33-6. And then we have Battle of the Den, Pioneer and Leland. Leland takes down Pioneer 21-17. Another tight one there, as it always is.
You know, Robert's going to get bragging rights for the next year against Nikon. Sorry, Nikon, man. Hey, by the way, shout out to Nikon, our fantastic producer of this podcast. Unfortunately, Pioneer did not win last night.
Yeah.
So
Mustang
tough,
alum.
tough. And then I was at this game last night. Bishop O'Dowd Monte Vista. Bishop O'Dowd won 24-20 on the road. And we can talk about it a little bit more later.
Sure.
But shout out to those Dragons, man. They love us. I think one of the players was like, "Hey, man, we saw your podcast, man. Thank you for coming out."
Love it.
You know, shout out to those Dragons. And in Pittsburgh, 41-14 Pirates over Bishop Manogue.
Yep.
Another statement win for those Pirates.
So going back with Los Gatos Liberty, last year we talked about this being a shootout, and we thought that we were going to get that same situation again this year. But, shout out Los Gatos. They play really hard. Offensive side of the ball, they were still working that 2-quarterback system last night, and the defense was able to shut them down.
Yeah, they really did. Our Aubrey Tolliver was there covering that game, and she said that the Los Gatos defense just shut down Jackson Bell. That's the biggest thing. I mean, the Liberty offense is insane with Jackson last year, right? That was a big thing they relied on. That guy puts up numbers. He put up numbers in that game last year.
Yep.
And just the Wildcat defense was a force not to be reckoned with. Not to mention how deep the roster is, too.
Right.
Aubrey mentioned to me, I think 72 kids on that Los Gatos roster, by the way. That was a lot of chicken sandwiches for that Chick-fil-A sportsmanship game. But yeah, it just came down to Los Gatos. That team is unlike any other. So shout out to those Wildcats really showing up in week 2 here of the season.
Mark Crail, man, he's a great coach. He's got a great program there in Los Gatos.
Legendary.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Yes, he does. Grayson Doslak, he had over 100 yards rushing with a touchdown. And then we had Colin Schweitzer with that 2-quarterback system I was talking about. He also had a touchdown pass he threw to Max Thomas to help the Wildcats secure that victory to improve to 2-0 on the season.
Staying perfect.
Yep. So, McClymonds St. Francis, another tough test for the Mac Warriors. Didn't work for them this time. But St. Francis, they just dominated from start to end.
Yeah, they couldn't stop the run.
No.
They could. I mean, Kingston. Shout out to Kingston Kiananaya, set the school record for rushing yards in a single game. Like
That's insane.
47.
Who had the record before? Was it
Viljami
Teu?
Teu
Yep.
against Sarah back in 2021. Wow. So, man, I mean, again, a lot of credit to Mac because they scheduled these tough games.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Man, hey, maybe St. Francis is really good this year.
I think they are.
You know, and
I think
we'll
they're
talk about
very
them.
good.
We'll talk about them in the poll, right? I mean, hey.
But you know what? At the end of the day, though, I mean, Mr. Kingston is lights out. But
Yep.
you got to give a special shout out to that O-line for providing those holes, so that way Mr. Kingston can break through those holes and cut loose.
Big boys don't get enough love. It's always, I mean, the guys up front are what make it happen, right? Whether it's airing it out or running down your throat. And
They have a few linemen that have a lot of D1 offers. Ata Matau being one of them. He's got some Big 12 SEC schools that he's considering. So, you know, when you have a line like that has some D1 prospects, man, you're in good hands. And St. Francis just able to roll past Mac.
Well, and not only that, that's their bread and butter.
Right.
Is run the ball. And, man, they did it to perfection last night.
Yeah, and St. Francis, they're going to be taking on De La Salle, who is able to beat those Sarah Padres. We're going to have a new #1 team in our football poll. I hope so.
Well, I mean, you know what?
Yeah.
I mean, let's
yeah.
be honest. Let's be honest right now. It shouldn't be any spoilers. De La Salle's #1.
Right.
There's a little preview of the poll.
Yep.
Right. De La Salle is the new #1. Oh my goodness, the 3-headed back for the Spartans.
crazy.
Well, it's more like 4. I mean, Derek Blanche, Dominic Kelly, Jaden Jefferson, and then Deuce Jones-Drew. I mean, that's just so tough to stop. Blanche went off. 162 yards rushing. Kelly with 2 touchdowns. Jaden Jefferson, you know, he was utilizing his track speed. He's an NCS champion in the 100 and 200 meters. So, like, when you utilize all that talent and when the O-line we talk about, shout out to them as well.
Big boys.
Providing those holes so that way they can burst through. Yeah, De La Salle is good. And Toafa'ave, you know, when he needed to make a play with his arm, he was able to do that. And that was so crucial late in the first half. Sarah had a turnover, and they were in the red zone with under 2 minutes left. They cough up the rock. De La Salle was able to move down the field. And then when Toafa'ave had to make a play, he took a shot to the end zone. He found his boy Jaden Nicholas for 6. So I'm just saying, De La Salle looks great right now.
It's crazy. We mentioned, I think I mentioned last week, was that when you have depth at the running back position, it is, again, a lethal weapon that you're able to go. You have fresh legs every time, and every running back performs at the same level of skill.
Right.
It's insane what De La Salle's putting together. And I think, like you mentioned, Adrian, on episodes past, is that De La Salle's looking like the good old days, kind of what they once had, you know, years ago. So
And when you have so many guys that can run the football down your throat, as we mentioned last week, it sets up that big play in the passing game.
Absolutely.
And we saw that late in the first half, and that's what really set the tone throughout the second half.
Well, not only that, Sarah had like a lot of turnovers.
They did.
So
they
that
did.
ended up, you know, doing him in.
Yep.
And I think that's the difference with De La Salle and Folsom. You know, Folsom let Sarah in the game the entire way, and Sarah found a way. De La Salle, on the other hand, took advantage
of those
turnovers, scored points, and really put the game to bed.
Yeah.
capitalize.
Matthew Johnson was lights out, you know, rushing the passer. That was also crucial. Fumble recoveries, interceptions, just taking care of those turnovers and converting them into the points was crucial, especially in the second half.
Yep.
So now we're going to get into a little bit of our previews.
Yep.
So now, Sarah, they had that tough loss. They took the De La Salle. It doesn't get any easier. First home game, they got to take on St. John Bosco.
Man,
That's a tough test.
that's a tall order. Go from De La Salle to St. John Bosco is tough. hey, there's bounce back weeks.
So what does this team have to do to, take care of Bosco? Like, what is it going to take? I mean, protecting the football is going to be the number one priority.
Absolutely. I think they need to play the perfect game. I'm not saying it's impossible, right? We've seen
Anything's
it happen
possible.
Before. Anything is possible, right? It's like Kevin Garnett. But they have to play the perfect game. I mean, they have to do a lot better in the passing game. They've struggled with the passing game the past 2 weeks. You cannot just run the ball every single play. You cannot do that. And this
become
is
predictable.
Bosco,
Yeah.
right? And if you think De La Salle will take advantage of your mistakes, Bosco will take advantage of those mistakes, and this game will be done in the first half if they play the way they played last night.
Yeah, you can't become one-sided, especially if it's not working above all, right? If you're run, and it's 50% success rate.
Yeah.
I mean, you become one-sided, you become predictable, and you got to be balanced as an offense to some extent. Whether it's run or pass favored, you got to be balanced at the end of the day.
St. John Bosco played.
I think it's also important to remember Sarah hasn't played at home yet. They had that win over Folsom in week 1, but they haven't played at home yet. So just something to keep in mind.
That's a good point. Yeah,
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That
That
is a
game,
good
that
point.
game is in San Mateo, and they're going to have a crazy student section. The parents are always there. They're going to show up, and there's always a great support system for those Sarah Padres, no
Yeah.
doubt about it. But one thing I do want to keep in mind, though, when we talk about Bosco being so explosive, their offense put up 71 points in a win over Eastwood. 71-14 was the
basketball game?
final. So number one priority for me, I would say just take care of the football.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to be the key. And if you take care of the football, you're going to create some opportunities when the game matters most, I would say.
And, I don't think, again, I give Sarah a lot of credit, man, for
Absolutely.
scheduling this game. But, I don't think anyone here thinks Sarah is going to win against St. John Bosco. I mean, Bosco's a nationally ranked team,
They are.
right? I mean, there's just a gap in terms of talent. In St. John Bosco, Mater Dei, then we have, all our boys here, De La Salle, Sarah Folsom, right? They're all good teams, but, I mean, it's just different.
Different calibers
It's a
for
different
sure.
caliber of football
Hey.
down there in Southern California.
Let's see an upset.
Hey, if those Padres can make that game close, I think that's a win in my
Absolutely,
book.
yep.
That's a win
Amen.
in my book. Another good game that's going to be happening for week 3, Reardon, Pittsburgh.
Ooh.
Oh, that's going to be a shootout. I'm calling it right now.
Yep.
Who's covering that game?
I am.
You get all the good games.
Mr. Vanderbrook
He gets all
himself.
the good games.
In Pitt too. I think that's a big
And-
difference. I think the biggest thing in that matchup is home field advantage.
That
plays a big
environment
part.
in Pittsburgh
Yep.
is going to be something else.
rowdy.
And shout out the concession stand. They got some really good food over there.
Yeah, they take care of you.
Yep.
They do good there.
They sure do.
But the football game.
Yes.
Do you think a shootout? What about the alternative side to it? I think actually has a good chance to see a defensive battle. They
Really?
could keep it low
Okay.
scoring. I could see something like a 21-14 final, just lower scoring.
21-14.
Something
Wow.
like lower scoring. I could see something
Okay.
happening there with a defensive game from both.
I mean, both these teams, they've already put up a lot of points already
Yeah.
this
They have.
season.
True.
I mean, despite Reardon losing to that St. Bonaventure, was it
St. Bonaventure.
Yep, St. Bonaventure.
a mouthful.
They still put up over 30 points in that game. So it's like Pittsburgh, you know what they can do. They have a great rushing attack. Marley Alcantara, who is our offensive player of the year, can sling it.
Yes, he can.
I think the problem with Reardon is their defense. They gave up 34 points against Mac
Yep.
week 1. They gave up 42 against St. Bonaventure last night. I don't know. This Pittsburgh team is loaded with talent
Yes,
on
they
both
are.
sides of the ball. Can they limit that offense? I don't know. Reardon has the offense to keep up with Pittsburgh, but it's going to come down to who makes the plays on defense. And Pittsburgh is known to have really good defenses for the past 20 years.
Right.
Can Reardon keep up with that? I'm not sure.
It's going to be a great game.
It will be
I'm
a
looking
great
forward
game.
to it.
It's going to be a great game. I mean, you say low scoring. I'm saying high scoring. I wouldn't be surprised if both teams crack 40 points.
Hey, we know I'm offensive biased here, so I'm all for high scoring. You know, I'm all for it.
All right, making our way over to Menlo Atherton taking on Midi. Both teams 2-0.
Yep.
MA, they went on to beat Monterey 28-7, while Gritty Midi ended up taking down Aptos 41-19. What should we expect from that game, Age?
Man, honestly, I don't know what to expect. Both teams are 2-0, right? I think Midi's offense is way better than last year. I mean, MA is going to be MA, right? I think it's going to be a shootout. I really think this game's going to be a shootout. But, I'm kind of looking at this a little bit blindly, expect the unexpected,
Right.
pretty much. But, hey, what does that say about the West Catholic League this year, right? I mean, there's a lot of good teams. I mean, besides Bellarmine, unfortunately, right? That program's a little bit down. But, hey, you know what? It's going to be a competitive league this season.
That it is. No, I'm really looking forward to seeing that matchup. Vikings fan, Gritty Midi, Justin Jefferson, Gritty. Is that the reference there? Or no, that's unbiased.
That's just Midi being gritty,
No, I'm really looking forward to that matchup. I really don't know what to expect myself out of this game. Especially MA. I haven't had the opportunity to see much of MA football in recent years, so I'm looking forward to see what they can do against Midi.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that should be a good one. I think this is going to be a defensive battle.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
I really do. I think both teams are in the beginning. I think they're going to have a tough time moving the ball down the field. And then, obviously, when it comes to the second half, they'll make adjustments and someone will be able to get the job done. I'm picking Midi for this one.
Okay.
By how many?
I'm going to say Midi by 6.
Okay.
All right. One score game. That's all it takes.
16-10 final.
16.
Whoa.
Wow. Okay. It's going to be a defensive battle.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did say defensive game, right?
Okay.
And all the scoring comes from defense, too. Let's add another
That's
angle
true.
to that.
Yep.
So, making our way over. So, we were just talking about Midi. So, now let's move over to volleyball.
Oh, hold on. Real quick. Shout out to Ignacio Valley.
Oh.
Finally winning a game of football for the first time since October 2019. They beat Redwood Christian 26-20. But I know it's
First
really gonna
win
Since
since 2019.
35-game losing streak finally snapped last night.
I had no idea. Hey, props to them. How
So,
about those Wolves?
congratulations
Putting
to
something
those
together.
boys.
That was right. That happened right near me. I was in Concord last night.
Oh, man. I'm shocked you didn't
that
hear
was
them.
that was right behind you guys.
Love the shout out. Good
Yep.
catch there. Shout out to the Wolves over there.
Yeah, good. Congratulations to Ignacio Valley. But so we were just talking about Midi football.
Yep.
Now we go over the Midi volleyball.
Yep.
The reigning CCS Open Division champs as well as the CCS D1 champs. They had a good test against Menlo Atherton.
Yep.
And Menlo Atherton, I know for a fact for that volleyball team, they're going to be very good this year. No doubt about it. Midi went on to beat MA 3-1. Our producer, Nikon Shadus, what did you take away from that match?
I honestly thought Midi was going to dominate a lot more than they did. Those sets were close. MA took the first set, so I mean that gives you as much as you want to
Right.
take from it. MA took that first set. I thought all the sets were close. The second one, Midi made some more distance, but it could have been anyone's game.
For sure. Lena Newen led the Monarchs with 19 kills in that victory. And we talked a little bit about it last week and about James Logan. They made that big statement when at Foothill. They look really good right now. They were able to beat Berkeley 3-0. Mackenzie Anderson leading the way with 12 kills. James Logan, they should be moving up in this poll.
Yep.
That's for sure.
So unfortunately, I mean, we were gonna talk about the volleyball poll in the podcast,
Right.
but since we're recording this on a Saturday morning, since
Right.
we can't be here in the stadium on Monday because of the Monday Night Football game with the
Right.
Niners and the Jets, so we're here now. We can't do the poll this week, but the Milpitas Spike Fest is happening as we speak right now. So
Yep.
a lot of great teams in that tournament. Midi, St. Francis, I think St. Ignatius is there.
Right.
So, we will see what happens after today. And then on our next episode, we can definitely talk about the volleyball
I
part.
wonder with that the Spike Fest. You know, those teams are playing multiple games in a row, right?
Yeah.
You know, depending how far they go throughout the day. How much you can, you know, take from those teams and, you know, their performance, right? Whether they struggle, you know, because they're playing back-to-back games, or the teams that excel, that can play X amount of games, you know, and win all the way through, right?
Yeah.
I just wonder with those, like, versus regular games, for the sake of conversation, where it's just, you know, one game, you know, best of 3 sets. The comparison of what you could expect and the takeaways you could take from those.
Yeah, you know, I think the big thing is when it comes to those tournaments, it's conditioning. Conditioning plays a
absolutely.
major role. And what also is a factor is that these matches, they're not 5-set matches,
They're
best of
3-set
5.
matches.
They're
Oh, is that
3
right?
sets.
They're 3-set matches.
So that also helps a little bit.
Sure.
But still a lot, though,
but
right?
it's still a
like,
lot.
Something like for a team like Midi, you know, you kind of expect them to make the championship in their division because
Right.
I think it's divided into multiple divisions.
Right.
So Midi's probably gonna play late into the night tonight.
how,
right?
how many games will they play, roughly?
I don't exactly know.
Sometimes these teams usually play 3 games. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's 5
I
games.
think it
They
might
play
be
a lot
5
of
games.
games.
They do play a lot of
That's for sure.
Wow.
A lot for a weekend. If
That
you
could be a
ask
lot of
me.
sets. Yeah, that could be a lot of sets, too.
Yeah,
But that
and,
also-
and that's a lot of screaming as well.
Yeah.
After every single point, they're yelling, "Woo!"
Slapping the floor, those hands are red. Yeah.
But you know
Absolutely.
that actually that just tells you know which teams are well coached, well
Yep.
conditioned, right? So yeah.
So we're making our way over to the football poll.
Uh-oh, here we go.
already talked a little bit about the new #1 team.
moment we've been waiting
and
for.
those De La Salle Spartans.
Here we go.
So with the loss that Sarah took last night, or Friday night, as we should say,
Yes.
where do you put the Padres?
Well, again, De La Salle's our #1 team. There's no
Yep.
question about that. No question. I have Pittsburgh at #2.
Pitt at number
Pittsburgh
2.
at #2. I think, honestly, in terms of talent, I think they're better than Sarah right now. And that statement win against Bishop Anoke, who is a state champion in Nevada, right? I don't care what class, 5A, 2A, it doesn't matter for me.
That game wasn't even close.
No, it was not even close.
Right.
Right. That's a state champion from last year, and they destroyed them at Pitt. So, you know, a lot of credit there. Obviously, I have Sarah at #3.
Wow.
Now, let me tell you why Sarah is #3. Yes, yes, they did get killed by De La Salle, but with a lot of turnovers, can really pass the ball.
Right.
But, you know, I cannot put San Ramon Valley over Sarah right now, who is
I agree.
at #4 right now. SRV #4. They defeated SoCal 14-7.
SoCal can play.
SoCal's
they
a
got a good
good team.
defense.
Holy
I
smokes.
said this in the last episode. SoCal's a good team.
There's a defensive game
Right.
for you right there. 14-7.
And that was the case with their loss against the Los Gatos.
Yep.
Back
Yeah.
in week 1.
SRV had to score a touchdown with like less than a minute left in the game.
wow.
So 14-7 there,
Love
SRV.
competitive football.
And SRV's playing Clayton Valley next week. So that's a tough test for those Wolves because Clayton Valley, who is now in the Diablo Athletic League, they're still a good team, well-coached team. Obviously, Pittsburgh is playing Reardon next week. They also are playing St. Francis. St. Francis at #5, right? They took a big jump from #10, I
Yes.
think, last week.
Yes.
Whoa.
Right?
That's a middle
that is
pack.
a very
That's a
impressive
statement win.
That's an
That's a
impressive
statement
win.
win.
Yeah.
Right? Against a very well-coached McClymonds team, a very physical McClymonds team.
I like it.
Los Gatos at #6.
Okay.
I like that.
Los Gatos at #6. They defeated Liberty. Again, defensively, impressive. Offensively, you know, will they transition out of playing 2 quarterbacks? Because they did that last year. They played 2 quarterbacks, and in the end, I think they just stuck with one guy in the end, by the end of the season last year. So we'll wait and see what happens there. Reardon at #7. Yes, they did go down. They did lose to St. Bonaventure, who is a good team down in Southern California. And it doesn't get any easier for them. They're playing
pick 'em
Pittsburgh.
up.
El Cerrito is at #8.
That's a good win.
Yeah. it
El
is.
Cerrito I think
That's
I
a
had him
good
at
one
like
for
number
them.
10.
They number 9.
Oh,
You had
number
St.
9?
Francis at 10.
Okay. So I can't put him over Reardon yet.
Not yet.
Not yet, but that's an impressive win against Monterey Trail last night.
And here's a
And
crazy
they're
one.
going to play Oakland Tech next week.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
you know, we'll see what happens there. Las Lomas
That's
is
the-
#9. So finally,
a
a
crazy
bubble
one.
team has made it to the top 10. Las Lomas.
Didn't expect
who,
that.
who defeated Vintage week 1 convincingly. They defeated Benicia last night 35-0. I think it's time. I think it's time to put Las Lomas at number 9. But I think somebody dropped. I forgot who I dropped out of the poll.
Marin Catholic.
Marin Catholic. Now, Marin Catholic's playing St. Mary's this afternoon. So,
Right.
well, I'm assuming they're probably going to lose to St. Mary's, right? And if they win, I'll put them back up in the poll.
Okay.
But for now, I'm assuming they're going to lose. I dropped Marin Catholic out, put Las Lomas in at number 9.
Sure.
And McClymonds dropped to number 10. They lost to St. Francis last night, and they've got a big test. Those Bishop O'Dowd Dragons.
Running hot.
I am officially putting O'Dowd on the bubble.
I was going to say, you
They
got to
better be
put
bubble.
Bishop O'Dowd on that bubble.
They are now in the bubble. And let me say this about Monte Vista real quick. They were a bubble team when we started this podcast.
Yep.
I don't know about that anymore. I mean, yes, they did beat Granada convincingly, but Granada was in the East Bay Valley Division. And here comes Bishop O'Dowd walking into your stadium. You were up 13-0, and you end up losing to them.
Yeah.
Right? O'Dowd just controlled the ball in the second half. They had the ball for most of the second half.
So is O'Dowd a number 11?
I wouldn't say 11 yet, right? I think they're in the top 15 in my opinion. They're a bubble team, and they're making believers out of everyone right now.
Yeah.
And what are some other bubble teams that you would consider putting in this poll?
Oh, that's so tough. Clayton Valley.
Clayton Valley.
Clayton Valley, I would say.
Would you put Windsor in there?
If they were in their coverage area, yes.
Technically, they are.
You are on the cusp.
It's like in the gray area, you know.
Yeah.
Like, in that case, we could include Cardinal Newman. Right?
How about this? We
Or
could put him on
SoCal. SoCal's also.
Well, the problem with SoCal is they're 0-2, right? So, but again, I give them a lot of credit for scheduling tough teams. They're 0-2, right? So, just like Mac, you know, the only reason why they're in is because of the teams they've played.
What about Cal?
Yep.
Cal's 2-0.
Yes,
I
they
think
are.
I need to see more from Cal.
Okay.
I think I need to see more from Cal. Berkeley is also 2-0, right? You know, a lot of teams. Hey, it's
And
still very.
That's what I
very
was just going to say. Let's remember, it's still very early in the season. A
Exactly.
lockout, a team that we aren't
yeah.
even thinking about, yet alone speaking about, could come roaring out of nowhere. So
Yeah.
it's still
And
early
that's
in the
O'Dowd
season.
right there.
Yep.
That's Bishop O'Dowd right there.
And the teams that are running hot can also fall off too.
Exactly.
A lot can happen, whether it's injuries, whether it's just they lose their hot hand. It's just what's bizarre to me. I have to throw this out here really quick. Is that you said for a long time Sarah's gonna be your number 1. You said until someone beats them, right? That's what you said since we
Yeah.
we
And that happened.
And now not only do that happen, but you know you would think in De La Salle they don't drop to number 2. They drop to number 3. That's the only thing I have to throw out there to contest. I think that's
And-
kind of crazy to drop them down from 1 to 3.
But
And
you got to
you know-
understand, Tyler, that Pitt offense can
is
ball.
absolutely.
out.
That's
And-
absolutely.
You know, and I give you credit. That's a fair point, right?
one loss
It's a fair
against
point.
a-
It is. But, you know, I was talking to Nathan Kabila from Mercury News last night.
Shout out Nathan.
Yep.
Shout
so
out.
he was
Great
he was
guy.
At,
Shout out.
he was at Monte Vista, and he said, man, they had trouble passing against Folsom. They
Yeah.
ran the ball a lot.
Yep.
And the same thing happened last night at De La Salle. They had trouble passing, turnovers, and they ran the ball a lot.
Yep.
You know, I know it's still week 2.
Yeah, it's only week
It's
2.
still week 2, but,
yeah,
you know, is this a sign of things to come?
right. And
We'll find
we're
out.
we're not even in league play yet.
Yep.
And we still have a few more
Can't wait.
weeks.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, great episode.
Yep.
Episode 3 in the can, and I think it's safe to say you've been covered. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.